Talofa, Bulavinaka Lele, Kiora, Yorana, Aloha, Hapade. My name is Donato Fatuesi,
And my name is Tepatasi Vaina.
and we are from Utopia, Seattle. Utopia stands for the United Territories of Pacific Islanders Alliance, and we are created to serve and create safe spaces for queer and trans Pacific Islanders, also known as QTPIs.
Yeah. For 10 years since its inception, Utopia has been bridging that gap between our communities and the resources that we have long been deprived of and we've been needing. So we continue to exist today to fight for our queer and trans Pacific Islander community, and your support has helped us to sustain through all these years.
So, welcome and thank you for joining our show tonight. We want to also acknowledge our community partners who are leading this work to help mobilize our communities to get counted in the 2020 census. Tonight, you will get to meet other Cutie Pie individuals, hear about their stories, and just talk story about why census is important to our communities and why we need to ensure to get folks counted. One of those major partners is Empowering Pacific Islanders Communities, also known as EPIC. So we want to give a huge shout out, much love and support to our friends at EPIC.
Also, a big shout out to all our Utopia chapters around the globe and in the country. Thank you for all the work that you continue to do for our Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander community. Why don't you go ahead and tell everyone about a little bit about yourself?
About myself, well, where do I start and when can I end? Do we have time? Again, my name is Donato. I am Fafafine and also identify as Tongan Lady. My pronouns are she and her. I am 28 years of age, currently single if you're looking. Can help put a ring on it. Please. But also, I serve as the operations manager here at Utopia Seattle, helping to fulfill my purpose in giving back to my community, but also helping to amplify the voices of other queer and trans Pacific Islanders to build their community power and see them thrive in whatever aspect of their lives is meaningful for them, to also help to provide leadership skills and training and resources to empower them.
Yeah. Thank you for all you do.
Oh, thank you. You know, I really owe it all to the queer and trans Pacific Islanders in my life that have helped enable me to have this platform, but also continue to inspire me. And some of my relatives as well at home who are probably watching. Thank you for joining. But enough about me. Who are you?
Well, let's just start this way. I also serve here at Utopia Seattle as the community engagement manager. And let me tell you, it has been such a joy and a gift for me to give back to my own community. I never dreamt that I would work for an organization that directly serves people that I identify with and a community that I belong to and love so much. My work revolves around a lot of organizing, but it gives me so much pleasure that Utopia has also been able to provide direct service, wraparound services. Oh my God, I am so sorry.
So pause for a moment for the train to go by.
Yes. Those are some of the challenges of navigating like virtual programs, right? We're limited to space and where we can provide these from. So unfortunately, we have a train that needs to pass first.
And that might occur regularly during the broadcast, maybe every 45 minutes, but yeah.
So we apologize in advance. So a little bit more about me. So my name is Tepa Vaina. My pronouns are she, her. I identify as a trans woman of color, but most importantly, I identify as unapologetically Fa'afafine. That is an identity that is so dear to me, and it is so important to me because of its ties to my cultural heritage and the land that I'm from. Speaking about land, um, it's always important that when we talk about identities, we also make that connection to land. Land where we are from and land that we occupy. Some of us came to this land in search of opportunities. Some came to this land in search of refuge and safety. Some were brought here by force and were stolen. Some were traditional stewards of this land, people that are still here continuing to bring light to their ancient heritage. On behalf of Utopia Seattle, we would like to acknowledge that the land on which we stand is traditional home to the Coast Salish people, specifically the Duwamish tribe, past and present. It is important for us to recognize that without their existence, our access to this dialogue right now would not have been possible. Please take a moment to pay your respects and recognize and acknowledge the traditional stewards of this land. I would also like to recognize that a land acknowledgement is not enough and is merely a beginning to a conversation that needs to continue happening so that we can fight against the erasure of our Indigenous communities. I invite you also to pay your respect in whatever ways are meaningful to you in your identity. And if you are wondering about what ways you can do that, here's one. Go to realrent.duwamish.org and pay real rent for the land that we occupy today. Utopia Seattle would also like to recognize that the political unrest around the country today with Black lives who have been lost to police brutality and discriminating practices. We stand in solidarity with the Black community, and we are here to continue to fight against injustices that we face with racism.
Should I go now? I think Tepa's got this job done. But also, take a moment wherever you're tuning in around the world, all 11,000 viewers of you, keep it counting. Take a moment to learn on which ancestral land you currently occupy, right? Learn about the history and the people who are the traditional stewards of that land and are. Thank you very much.
And also for like our Indigenous communities that continue to occupy the land of your ancestors, to invite your ancestors and to pay that respect to them, and recognize all the hard work that they put in to make sure that we live in a time as we are right now.
That part. All right, folks. So we do have an amazing week of action that is happening across mostly the Western region. And we're calling it the NHPI Census Week of Action. Now, tonight is only day 3 of this week of action that is happening, that many organizations are helping to mobilize efforts for folks to get counted and included in the census. And tonight is dedicated specifically to our queer and trans Pacific Islander community, hence why we are naming tonight's event QTPI the Census.
Let's QTPI the census.
QTPI it up, cuties. Happening tomorrow night is the Indigenous Count, presented in partnership with Native People Count of California. On September 11, Service Day is happening to honor the essential workers at the front lines serving our communities. And on September 11 is Youthful Census Day. And folks will have a chance to listen to the next generation of NHPI leaders to make sure that we hashtag count all kids. So thank you so much, folks. A lot of that information is available on our website and our social media platforms. This live broadcast is also happening on 3 platforms: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So feel free to engage with us on much of the conversations that will be happening throughout tonight's program. We will have a special Q&A portion to be able to hear from viewers that are tuning in. And we see that the count is continuing to grow. We want to say hi to some of the folks commenting. Sika, Erda, Pika Wise here. Hey, Sasha Samuelu. Welcome, folks. Please like, share, push this content out. Let's get folks, especially our QTPI community, to join us and have some tea.
Yeah. Now, before we move forward with our conversation tonight, maybe we can tell everyone a little bit about what census is.
Okay.
So the census is basically a head count. It happens every 10 years, and it counts everyone living within the United States. And yes, I mean everyone living within the United States. It does not say that it counts only citizens. Mm-hmm. If you are living in the United States, please get counted. If you are wondering if you should get counted, get counted. Mm-hmm. It's important for our communities that we get counted. Why? Because census helps to fund so many programs in the areas that we live in. And so if we are not counted, we lose up to 10 years of funding that could benefit us and our loved ones. It also helps with redistricting and reapportionments. Oh my God, those were such heavy words. Redistricting.
Yeah. Just kidding.
Well, some of our panel will talk a little bit more about what that means, but basically redistricting is to divide district lines based on the population that is counted within those regions. And reapportionment is the designating of how many seats are in the U.S. House of Representatives, in Congress, that are from each district. So how does census affect that, you may ask? Well, if we are from a region of like such a very big population and our census count shows that it's not such a big population, we might end up with fewer seats in Congress than we actually deserve because we didn't get everyone counted. Mm. This week, it's very important. Census NHPI Week of Action. Why is it so important? Well, our Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander community are at risk of being undercounted. And that's due to many reasons. One may be as communities of color and as Indigenous communities, most of us speak English as a second language. Our first language is another language other than English. And so that can definitely be a barrier in understanding the census and being able to respond. So yes, just a brief update on census. Not only are Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander communities at risk of being undercounted, but also queer and trans people. So as queer and trans Pacific Islanders, that issue is magnified, and we need to address and eliminate that issue by getting counted. All of us and everyone around us, please get counted.
Thank you so much, Tepa. So our staff put together a short PSA, to help spread the word on getting counted. And so I hope you folks will enjoy the short clip that we put together, and it'll give you some information on where you can go to get counted now. So stay tuned. That's coming right up.
The 2020 census is nearly over. We have until September 30th to get counted.
The census data will be used to fund hundreds of programs that will benefit our loved ones,
such as medical services, so that we can continue to receive treatment and care. If we do not respond now, we miss out.
All it takes is just 10 minutes of your time.
You can go online at www.my2020census.gov or call the toll-free number at 844-330-2020.
What are you waiting for?
Wasn't that wonderful? Get counted.
Right? Get counted.
Sure. That was a familiar face for everyone. Taffy Johnson, our fearless executive director. And we have folks new folks joining our live stream. So we also want to give a shout out. Hello, Chloe, Meliquini, Ruby.
Oh.
Many cutie pies tuning in. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
So now you just also saw a preview of more of our staff members here at Utopia. In just a moment, you'll get to meet each and every one of them as we spill some tea, talk story about Census. And so we'd like to bring on our first panelist. Her name is Tweety Fatuesi, related to Donato Fatuesi. Some folks in the community might know Tweety is my sister. Hey girl, are you here? Let's welcome Tweety to the stage. Contestant number
Tweety.
1.
Hello, Tweety.
Talofa. Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute.
We can hear you now.
Good to see you all.
Is
Great
it
to
on?
see
Okay.
you.
Is this thing on? It's on, honey.
I was going to say.
Hi, Tweety. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so wonderful to see you on here.
Again.
Right.
Of course, it's a pleasure to be here.
So
I
we
feel
know
like I should be inducted into a Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, yes, as I was saying, you know, of course, we know you. We know your brilliance. We get to see you almost every day. But please introduce yourself to our community of folks across the globe that are tuning into our live.
Well, talofa, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all viewing via social media. My name is Tufa Tuesi. I am a community organizer with Utopia Seattle. And my role here is primarily to work our civic engagement areas, which include programs such as our census outreach strategies, our voters, our climate justice effort, which is very important work that I think this particular platform to be able to bring ourselves into this space virtually helps to promote and uplift the voices of, specifically today with our QTPI community, but our collective power to keep building our support networks. So thank you all much for tuning in virtually, and it's a pleasure to have you all.
Thank you, Tweety, for that. I cannot express enough how grateful we are for the work that you do. That is such important work in our community. Voters, education, census, two of the most powerful tools that we have in our hands to be able to make a direct change. And
Absolutely.
You are out there empowering our communities to continue to take advantage of those tools. So again, thank you so much for all that you continue to do. We are so blessed and so fortunate to have you. Well, why don't we bring on our next panelist?
My pleasure.
But also, I want to also give a shout out to Pulai and Alex from Missouri who are tuning in and saying hello.
Hi, Pulai, and hi, Alex from
And
Missouri.
our Utopia Portland chapter is just signing in. Hey, y'all. Also, please.
Welcome, welcome.
Social media. Also, use the hashtag QTPI the Census to push this content out and help share it with other cutie pies across the globe so they can also hang out with us. All right. Next up, we want to introduce you or allow her to introduce herself, Miss Diana Krishna, contestant number 2. Let's bring her on to the stage. Hi, Diana.
Hi, thank you, beautiful host Donato and Tepper. You two look so stunning. I was just looking at both of you. In your presence, I look like a host and you two look like contestants. So
Well, do you want us to compete or what?
With
No, sisters don't compete. We
no,
empower each
I think there's no yes.
Love it. Well,
Yes,
Diana, please tell our
my name is Diana. My name
Did we lose her?
So my name is Diana Veron, and hello,
Yes, Diana, we can hear you.
hello. Okay, so my name. I'm sorry. Apologize for the delay. I think there's something wrong with the network, but we'll get through this. My name is Diana Veronica Krishna, and I work with Utopia Seattle as a COVID-19 response coordinator. My work involves a lot of community outreach, organizing test sites. We were distributing about 500 to 600 boxes of food from the month of May till August to community members, and we impacted people from all walks of life. We also outreached QTPIs with a relief fund for several months, and we impacted so many lives in whatever small or big ways we could. One of our big role or big work around COVID-19 is to promote safety tips, plus healthy lifestyle, so that people know what to do around COVID-19. There is so much misinformation going around COVID-19 with COVID-19 from the top. So one of our focus is to also detangle the misinformation and inform our Pacific Islander folks the right information, so we can take the right measures. Working and learning with Taffy Johnson, our executive director, has been the most beautiful work experience, I would say, of my life. I've worked in different countries, from Fiji to New Zealand to Canada to America, and I have grown, and I feel loved and trained, and also I feel she and the team wishes me to grow as a person, as an individual, as a woman in our society, and they are rooting for me, and I feel empowered through the work that I'm doing. So kudos to my team, and thank you all. For having me and supporting our work.
Wow, that
Thank
was
you.
so beautiful. Give her the crown.
Where is my crown?
Well, let's see at the end of this conversation if we should give it to you.
We still have two more folks on our panel for you to meet. And so next up, Diana, we'll bring you back in just a sec. Let's get folks to meet our one and only Fania Sapili. Thank you, Diana. Hi, Nia.
Hi, Nia.
Nia, I think your mic is muted. Can you check your mic for 1 second, please?
Oh, sorry about that.
Mic check 1 2 1 2.
There you are.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Diana, that was very touching. You deserve another raise, sis.
Fania, please introduce yourself to our audiences that are tuning in.
Hello, community and friends tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Fania Sipili. I am a community organizer at Utopia Seattle. And part of my job is to develop a leadership cohort that composes of our queer and trans-Pacific Islander community. And while we're in the process of actually setting up the foundation of our cohort, which I'm sure if you were part of the newsletter, it's called Tautua Trans Leadership Cohort. And so far we have 15 members from our QTPI community. And so our hope for this program, for this cohort program, is to provide ongoing leadership and engagement opportunities, as well as relevant training. Given the current circumstances, I feel like there's so much potential out there in our communities. There's so many leaders out there. And yeah, it's good to be represented. And I just want to comment that you two look like talk show hosts.
Like talk show hosts.
We are.
Are we not talk show hosts? Is this not a talk show?
We are the talk.
We are the talk show hosts. But I mean, thank you, Nia. Seriously, if any big networks out there are looking for more trans representation in their media, call a girl up.
Right. And then especially I feel and that's one of the underlying issues too out there, is that underrepresentation of our trans queer and trans Pacific Islander community. So by my hope for this cohort is to as I mentioned before, is to just highlight our folks, so that way we can talk about so that way we and they can talk about issues that they experience, because everyone's experience is a little bit unique to their own. Is that the train?
Pause for the train.
Got it.
If you're just tuning in, we had already mentioned earlier in the broadcast that our office is located in downtown Kent, and close to the train tracks. So every 45 minutes to an hour, you might hear the train go by.
So you can imagine that during COVID, while everything has been shifted to virtual platforms, that we get Zoom bombed every single time by train sounds.
I mean,
but thank you so much, Nia, for that beautiful introduction. We are going to be moving on to our next guest to introduce herself, Adriana Sunuai, and then we'll come back and bring the rest of our guests.
Hey, Adriana.
Hey, Adriana.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Can you hear me?
Just a little bit.
Hello?
Yeah,
We're
good now. Adriana, why don't you introduce yourself for our guests, please?
Talofa love, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Adriana Suluai. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for Utopia Seattle. I use she, her pronouns. I also have a cultural identity. I am a Samoan Fa'afafine, and very proud of that. My work entails with Utopia Seattle, with the dish that I bring into our table, is a lot of advocacy work around LGBTQI, especially our queer trans Pacific Islander community. I recognize that there is a lot of movements that are going around, and it is very best that I assert myself in these conversations, so it can also be heard from a person of color or a Pacific Islander perspective. Also in my line of work, I do a lot of one-on-one case management, working with community members for whatever goals or resources that they're in need of. Aligning with that, we have our New Possibilities clothing project that is on right now. This project aims to support our queer trans Pacific Islanders community member with resources on getting piece of clothing for whether it be for an interview or a special occasion or even a first day of the job.
And ongoing too, right? Yeah.
Yes, this is very ongoing. I've been getting a lot of support on donations from community members. If you are watching, thank you so much for sending us a piece of clothing for our closet. It benefits and it helps our community, especially during these tough times with the COVID landing around and people getting laid off work with furlough. It is a need for our community members to have access to this resource.
Thank you, Adriana. Can you tell everyone how they can connect with you on, like, if they want to receive any of the services?
Of course, you can visit our website and send us an email of me at adriana@utopiaseattle.org, or you can just message us on any of our social media platforms. Our information are out there. If you are in need of support, just go ahead and message me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adriana. At this time, we want to bring all of our panelists onto the screen.
Yes, we're going to have all of them. Ooh, there they are.
I just saw you guys sitting at the office.
And now,
what a dynamic team.
The last photo that I have in my hands will be the winner of the introduction challenge. Tepa, who was that winner for you?
It was me.
Get out. I'm done. She's gonna take over.
I'm leaving this house.
Well, it is tea time, with the crew. We're gonna go over just a number of questions to help folks better understand what the census is, why it's important for them, why they need to get counted, like now. And I want to start with Tweety. If you could please share a reflection of your first memory or experience with census.
So thinking back, I think it was the year 2010, just when I was like entering into high school. I recall a stranger coming up to the house, and I was in American Samoa at the time. And so they were asking, for my parents, and when they came out, I sort of like was being nosy to try to see what was going on. And I just recall someone asking a whole bunch of questions like, who lives here? How many people live here? Similar to the census questionnaire that you would find when you were accessing and responding to it today. And so I never really gave it much thought. Probably I might have tried to inquire after that meeting was over to see what that visit was about. And so my parents kind of just, their reaction to it was sort of like, oh, no, don't worry about it. It doesn't concern you. And so like it kind of sort of stuck with me because I can still remember it, obviously. So fast forward to today, entering Utopia as this organizer, and now diving into so much of the census efforts, I realized the importance of it, the usefulness it does to empower our communities. I didn't know much about it when I first came into this line of work. So now that I've had a chance, probably like almost a year now, to sort of look into what census is used for, who it helps support, and things of that nature, I have a newfound respect for census information in general. So I would now thinking back on that initial encounter, I would probably encourage a parent, if you're a parent of a young one, is to sort of reach out or educate your children on the importance of the census, so that they can reap the benefit that it provides to our youth, especially our LGBTQ youth. Because a lot of the times parents feel as if, thinking from the adult mindset that this is adult business. But in actuality, I would probably mentor my parents that, it is everyone's business. Even if a youth member is inquisitive about the census, have some education around it, because it really is there to serve everyone.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And, that's so real too, because we grew up in the same household. You know, I share that same experience, right? But definitely with the understanding that sometimes folks treat census as it's just adult business, right? But like there's lasting implications of up to 10 years, right? So even if you're at 22 and you might be undercounted, not counted, the effects of that, right, can affect your community all the way through to when you're 22. So thank you so much for sharing about that. I'd like to hear next from Adriana on, pardon? Sorry, about your first memory or recollection of the census.
Well, doesn't seem that far long ago. I think I've been around for 3 census. This will be my 3rd one. I think my first one was I kind of remembered people coming around to our house, and for some weird reason, there was not a lot of visibility or a lot of awareness or cultural or awareness around like what census are. In my mind, I just thought they were just Jehovah Witness people coming over to preach their religion over to our household. So it kind of dinged on me and kind of like, oh no, they're like, oh, it's an old, there's an adult and mama like, no, there's no adult, because I kind of was like, okay, they're just here to deliver like their religion over to our house. And then over the years, it's that I just the thought of being counted was I didn't think that it would affect my household. I thought, oh, like, okay, so, you know, we're just a short amount of, you know, we're just one family. Like, what good is it going to be? So I was just always turning these people away. Back when we were in Pongo, I kind of never gave it a lot of attention and a lot of information or passed them along to my mom because I never thought that it mattered. I think when I started coming into Utopia and I, you know, discovered more about how how census works and how it can affect community, especially marginalized communities like ours, was when I really like took out the form and filled it because it was very important.
Thank you both, Adriana and Sweetie, for sharing that. I said earlier, like that is so powerful, and really like to look back and like realize how important census is to us today, how we realize the significance of it, and to look back and remember how we used to look at it at our first recollection of census. And it's interesting, but thankful for growth, right, and for understanding. But I'm curious to hear from the rest of the panel. Like, I'm just so interested in your recollections as well.
I guess I can go next. My first awareness of the census was actually in 2010 when I was still back home in American Samoa. So I guess they were looking for census surveyors, or I don't know what they're actually called, but I do remember that on like Channel 5 or something, they would just have like the screen broadcast advertisements. I don't know if you lot remember that, but that's how I first came across the word census. But I never did, like the rest of the panel, I didn't really have an idea or a clear understanding of what the census was. I remember people coming over to our house and asking for an adult, and then I also do remember them having a sit down and going over the form. So I just thought that was interesting. I really didn't pay no mind to it, but now being involved in the work with Utopia Seattle, you kind of see firsthand why it's very important that we get counted and what these numbers do. So that's my first experience, and I'm also big on, now that I'm a little bit more big on educating our folks about why it's important to participate in the census.
Right.
Wow.
QTPI the census.
No, I think your term was right, census surveyor.
Mm-hmm. Is that right, sweetie?
Tweety?
Yes, they're also known as census takers, census enumerators, census surveyors is another term.
Yeah,
But great
all I
job.
know is he was cute.
Enumerator. I love it. Those expensive words.
Ooh.
I asked this enumerator. Get a head count.
It seems like a lot of work.
Diana, tell us about your first experience with the census.
Is a question asked on Diana?
Yes.
Oh,
Diana,
okay.
Oh.
You should say contestant number 4. Oh, Miss PG. Please, host.
It's your chance.
Okay, so let me take you back. When I was a little girl growing in a village in Fiji Islands, I remember there were people from the government who came to take census. At that time, we didn't understand what it was all about. But I remember asking questions about what was going on with my parents, and they said that these government officials have come to count, and but that was about it. I thought it was, just like a school attendance in a classroom when I went to class. So I could imagine that the government is doing the same thing. They are counting how many people is in their classroom. So, and we didn't, hear back, or we didn't have much uh, information about census then. But when I moved to North America, this year was my first experience with census here in America, in the Washington State. And I remember one of my members in the household asked me if I would like him to fill my census information for me, and I just brushed it away because I wasn't very keen to get that information filled, because there were a few reasons. I was little bit suspicious of what is the major role of the census. I was not very sure, and I suspected that census actually is government's way of catching who is living where and what are they doing. And as a person, I'm not illegal, a legal immigrant. However, I still was a little bit cautious because I'm a trans woman and of color, and I just didn't want to give too much information. And I told him not to, just I'll feel it later, and I never did until I started work at Utopia Seattle, and I learned the importance of census through my work. And it was a great opportunity. I also learned that whether I'm a citizen or not, I can still be counted. Either I'm documented or not, I still need to be counted, because they take an oath not to reveal that information to any other stakeholders or government agencies. So I felt really reassured to fill up my census, and I feel this is such an important work, because we don't choose how we are going to decide to shape our cities and our state for the next 4 years, but for the next 10 years. And the money and the representation that is going to be allocated is immense, because it happens every 10 years. It's not like voting for the president. And I'm learning all this, and it's very, very interesting. It's voting for the president, we can change them every 4 years, but census and changing things around where I live and my importance of in the community itself, it will happen. The change would happen after 10 years, the next 10 years. So I learned the importance of actually census just most recently. and I'm still learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I think you touched on a very important narrative for our NHPI community. Folks have a very real fear of giving their information to the government, right? And so there are people out there that are hesitant to fill out the census. They feel that sharing all of this information, what my household looks like, could risk other resources that I might be trying to access, with whatever, I might have a criminal history and I might be discriminated against if I seek this other job because this information might now be out there or things like that. But yeah, it's very important that folks know and understand that Title 13 exists specifically to ensure that the information that is collected from the census is not shared with any other government agency. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and also I wanted to add on that's why it's important, like, to continue to advocate for culturally, right? So that when we are receiving like such a service, like we're receiving someone that looks like us and this provides more comfort for us to be able to respond in the way that we should, and authentically and honestly.
Absolutely.
I think Tweety has.
And if I can just interject for a second,
let's wait for the train.
Diana, you bring up some very valid concerns. Okay.
Okay, Tweety.
Is she gone? All right, I just wanted to acknowledge that Diana brings up some very valid concerns. There are a lot of people who feel the same that you do. And I myself sort of felt the same, early on when I started looking into what the census even is. But I'll tell you why it exists. And it exists because it's actually written in the Constitution of the United States. And you can find it in Article 1, Section 2, I believe. But basically, the reason how it came about is because the founding fathers would want the government to do a survey of the entire nation, in the hopes the government can continue to provide service, funding, or support for its inhabitants. Another thing that you mentioned also is that there's a big distrust of individual government agencies, especially in this current political climate. But one thing that we have to understand is that the census doesn't exist to work against us, but for us. And that's why it's critical for us, especially as a QTPI organization, especially as a QTPI individual or LGBTQ person, however you choose to identify, to educate yourself on what the census does to uplift our minority groups or whichever minority group that you identify with, because it's actually, I'll just leave it at that without taking away time, but I'm sure we'll have another opportunity to dig into this later. But I understand where you come from in your personal view, but I would advise that we continue to serve as trusted messengers to get everyone on board with responding to the census, especially now because our deadline is fast approaching September 30th, which is this month.
Tweety, could I add something to that? So yes, I want to quote my favorite musician, Cardi B. She said something. She said, "Census is safe, easy for everyone. The citizenship question is off the census. No matter what anybody tells you, immigrants with or without papers count too." So, it's important. It's let's all get counted.
Is that in her new song?
I never see her Cardi B person.
Cardi B, Cardi be my friend.
Shocking.
I love Cardi.
Come through, Cardi.
It's so funny that
Yeah, but in case anyone missed that, as Tweety mentioned, we have until September 30th. That is the deadline to get counted for the 2020 census. And then we'll have to wait another 10 years. Please don't miss out.
Yes.
Get counted.
Thank you. I'm very interested to know, Fania.
It only takes 10 minutes of your time.
Sorry, what was that, Adri?
I think.
I said it only takes 10 minutes of your time. Am I lagging?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, we lost you a bit there. Can you repeat that?
I think she meant to go off our PSA script. All it takes is 10 minutes of your time.
Oh. Yes, folks. All it takes is 10 minutes of your time.
And I can attest to that. I live in a multi-family household, and it literally took me about less than 10 minutes or less to fill out the census.
Yeah. Also, Tweety, I think this is important, so I'm just going to ask you to clarify on this. Is this year the first time the census is utilizing all mail, online, and phone to be able to get everyone counted?
Yes, 3 ways you can respond is through mail. I know the Central has sent out multiple questionnaires for households to start responding. At this point in time, they have, COVID, they'd had to do some altercations or adjustments to their efforts to get everyone counted in the nation. But there are some non-response follow-ups, meaning that a census enumerator or a census surveyor will be coming out to those households who have yet to respond, either by mail or by phone. And you can also do it online if you choose to use that method, which is the one that I use, which is fairly simple. I know another reason why folks might not be keen to respond is because language barrier is an issue, especially at NHPI communities. A lot of them, or a lot of our folks, don't have the capacity to respond at that, either by mail or online, especially considering that we are not a community that, I myself, speaking from personal experience, I'm not that technical savvy. So as an alternative, if you choose to go on if you choose to use the phone option, there are so many interpreters, even Samoan, Tongan, Fijian language interpreters who can assist you to fill out the questionnaire over the phone.
Thank you for sharing that, Tweety.
Well, at this time, we'll take a short break. We have another Census PSA video featuring our beautiful QTPI community.
The census helps to support me and my family members.
Census counts youth members. Pacifica People Matters on 2020 Census.
Census, I'm counted. I'm significant.
I count.
I count.
I count.
I count.
I count. I count.
I count. I count. I count.
I count.
I count. I count.
We all count! LGBTQ issues, right?
So let's go to this question and
Hi, folks.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Oh.
Give us just a moment. They're going to replay another Census PSA video for
The census helps to support me and my family members.
Census counts youth members. Pacifica people matters on 2020 census.
Census, I'm counted. I'm significant.
I count.
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 I count. I count.
We all count!
I count.
You do count, sister.
All count. I count.
I love that so much. Also want to give a special shout out to Jaren, who is our new communications manager, who helped to produce the census videos that you've been seeing tonight, and who is also controlling the live broadcast that is enabling us to hang out in Kiki and talk story about census.
Yeah.
At this time, we want to dig a little deeper into the conversation to really get folks motivated and amplified to get counted in the census. We touched a little bit about some of the hesitations that folks might be feeling and identified that some of them are cultural. But, you know, because it's QTPI Census Day, I want to talk a little bit more about why it is that LGBTQ plus community, specifically QTPIs, might be undercounted in the census. Fania, what do you think some of those reasons might be? Fania, can you check your audio again, please?
Sorry, my bad.
About that.
I think there's a specific reason, and I believe because the question isn't on the. I believe it's not on the census survey, and so if we're not able to count, if we're not able to record our gender identity, our sexuality, then in some way that also hinders the count, right? Because all the count is just basically asking, the data is just compiled as female or male. And I think that's my understanding. And so a lot of our LGBTQ folks don't really feel the need. I mean, if it's something that doesn't apply to you, why would it matter, right? And so the focus of this conversation that we're having, along with other census task force, is to educate our folks, our LGBTQ folks, or our QTPI folks, in reasons why it's important either way that we still keep counted. That's just my input.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much. And that's very real, right? Like, the census only asks whether you're male or female. Folks who are non-binary are not able to self-identify in a holistic way. There's also the relationship question, right? That doesn't completely match our households. There's a sexual orientation question, Tweety. I'm going to come to you for this one, that only applies to the one person filling out the census, right?
And their relationship to the first person one that's filling out.
Yeah, can you tell our viewers a little bit more about that, Tweety?
Yeah, so when it comes to the sexual or the gender question and the sexual orientation question, the census doesn't exactly count what your sexual preference or your sexual relationship is to person one, which person one in this case would be the actual person that's filling out the census. And then anyone in your household, whatever their relationship is to you, you can choose to say, to identify whether this person is your opposite sex partner, or same or sibling, however that framework is in your household. But it does, the census is slowly but surely uh, progressing into becoming more inclusive, especially this census, because you're able to identify whether you are in a same-sex relationship, two person one, and you're also able to or to clarify whether you are in a married relationship, two person one as well. Hopefully, by the next census in 2020 comes around, I'm sorry, 2030, the Census Bureau would be able to have all types of identities available and sexual orientations on there. But, at, this is just one of the reasons why it's even more important to keep ourselves counted, because once we're able to self-identify our genders, our sexual orientation questionnaire, I'm sure that the government will be able to see that we are a vast community, an up and coming community, an ever growing community of individuals who need services that are catered to us and our own specific needs.
I want to follow up that question, and this could be for anyone on the panel. But before I do that, I just want to remind our audience that we are able to take questions for our panelists at the end of the conversation. So feel free to drop those in our comment section on our FB, and our staff will make sure that we receive the question so that we can ask our panelists. But sweetie, thank you so much for sharing that. We talked about, like how Fania mentioned, that this warrants hesitation from our communities to get counted. And many of us would feel like maybe like, so why should I get counted if I'm not being counted holistically, right? What are some of the tips that you could offer our queer and trans community, so that we can still encourage, because we've established that census is still very important, regardless of these faults that we've talked about. But what are some of the tips and advice that you would like to share with our queer and trans community to make sure that they are not so discouraged to the point where they just don't want to deal with census anymore?
I guess I could just share my own personal advice, is that I would encourage you to take a look at the people around you. Think of, as selfless as I am, I know that being counted on the census is still going to serve, for example, my nieces and nephews who are in public schools, who rely on public education to, guide their educational career. My parents who also rely on medical services. Another example would be even myself, who need when care for medical needs for my own self, and then like there's a number of reasons why I would advise you to do it anyway, and that's just a great place to start, is the people who are around you, love.
Yeah. Thank you for that, sweetie. Tanya, is there anything that you would like to add on to that question?
I think, well, mostly for what Tweety said resonates with me, because as a queer and trans Pacific Islander, most of our community live with a lot of family members, right? So, like Tweety mentioned, that it's if we're not filling it out for ourselves, we can fill it out for our loved ones. Some of our folks might have nieces and nephews that are growing up, and so like most of the census data that is compiled within that 10-year, it'll help fund federal aid, federal Pell Grant programs, as well as school lunch programs. So in turn, it helps the people around us, children.
Yeah, absolutely. Go.
I wouldn't say I'm a census expert, but I've had the benefit of sitting in some of Tweety's workshops and some of the workshops that we received as Utopia. And I just wanted to add this on because I think it's so important that our queer and trans community is aware of this and that, they keep that in mind when filling out the census. Although our non-binary communities and our trans community largely are at a disadvantage because of the way that the census is set up, but I would still very much encourage you to mark the gender that closely associates with how you live your life, so that so in order to benefit you more closely. But also, I think it's a very real fear for our communities to be worried about, like, what if I want to mark female and I haven't legally amended my documents to reflect female, right? And again, one of the benefits of joining Tweety's workshops is that I learned that they will not cross-reference that. You mark the gender that you identify with, and the census is prohibited giving that information out to anyone else, including ICE.
Right.
Thank you, Deborah, for reminding me because that kind of just went over my head. But yeah, one thing to reiterate: whatever your option is that you choose to identify yourself on the census, no other third party, or entity, or even the census cannot follow up with you to even stalk you down and clarify it. That is actually a true statement. So I encourage folks to identify however you feel closely represents yourself.
And also, I just wanted to add that for trans or for queer, for LGBTQ folks that are that are living by themselves or with a group of friends, just filling out the form or getting counted. It also funds a lot of public programs, like EBT or Medicaid. And although it's not gender specific, we have community members that rely on such programs. So if we're able to get counted, we have access to a lot of these resources that that hetero people also have access to. Why not us? So I also feel like that's important as well. I wanted to put that out there.
And
Can
I
I
think
add
for
something?
also mentioning that, Fania, homes for QTPI community, the LGBT community, are sometimes non-existent, right? Or we have chosen families. We create our own safe spaces, our safe homes. And that makes our communities even more harder to count, right? For folks that might also be living in group homes, or have been ostracized from their birth families, why should they care about the census? Or they might not have an address to get the mailers, or things like that. These are very real conditions for a lot of people in our community,
right? And because of everything you just mentioned, there's a high population of the queer and trans community in homelessness. And I guess one of my questions is, what types of resources and services are available to make sure that also our queer and trans community in homelessness are counted?
And where are they counted?
Yeah, where can they go to?
Honorable Tapa and Donato, could I add something to this?
Yes, please, Diana.
So, the question was, what reasons can you think of warrant hesitation with the census? And when I think about this question, and bringing a personal experience to it, I think my hesitation was that the questions and answers could be or would be used against me and like data privacy and confidentiality. So that was my fear. And when I think about it, and about our people, or people of color and immigrants in this country, I think the fear that around census is that it could be used to locate people living in the country without documentation. So I mean, people who live in that kind of situation, I'm sure they have that, uh, this will be adding up to a little more worry to their list of worries. And some may not know how the census data could be used, but like I said earlier, I've learned from my experience working with our organization that the count will determine how many representatives will represent our state in the Congress for the next 10 years, and how our communities will receive funding for roads, schools, housing, medical, and social programs. And so it's really, really important. I had that fear that census was government's, how can I say, government's um, disguised, government officers disguised as police coming to check. But it's not true. It's entirely not true. That is a fear. That is a conspiracy theory that we run through because we have already some very valid fears living as immigrants in this country. And I think census, and I can speak from a space of truth and facts, that census is none of those. It is designed to create programs and funding, right, Tuti?
Can I add
You
to
nailed
that,
it on the
Diana?
head. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, it's so funny, Diana, that you brought up that stigma about our information being used against us or weaponized against us in whatever shape or form, against, especially with our government. So that's kind of like always like a back thought in my head is that I'm giving them like my whole household information, but then it's what is the lashback that I could possibly get from this? Like, is there some reassurance that they can offer me just to let me know it's that this information will not be given over to another party rather than just what it was intended for? But yeah, those are just my thoughts about like some of the setbacks that I always thought about when it comes to, especially giving out information, important information, even when it comes to family. It's just a big picture of how I don't want it to affect others or what I write down and how it could possibly be something bad for my family. And nobody wants that.
Yeah. Or we
Right.
might be
So,
housing
Adrian, if I
a
can just.
community member, right, that hasn't yet been counted, right? So folks need to also understand that, like, if you're a QTPI or LGBTQ and you haven't been counted and you're homeless currently, that you can still participate and get counted. It's still not too late. And there are, again, a number of ways, online, phone, and mail option. Sometimes. I do want to give a special shout out to other folks that have joined our live. Nathaniel Leotele, Ina, Alira, who is also on our translatorship cohort, Eddie Unutua, Numin Letuli, and also one individual, Patty, who says that they just filled out their census because they took that video. So
Look at us.
Yay. Great job, Patty.
Yeah, top prize. I think Patty deserves the crown.
No, but really, it's so important to, like I said before, when we have talks like this, it helps community that we're from. Because it's much more comfortable for them to receive this message from people that look like them and people that they trust. So yeah, and like this is such a great initiative, and I want to thank you all for just being here tonight because we're getting the message out. And you know what? Awareness is everything, because we cannot make a significant impact on anything that we don't have enough awareness on. And so we're continuing to spread awareness. Great job, team.
Yes. So, folks, please, if you have questions for our panel, if there's any clarifying questions that will help you to better understand the census, or anything about some of the narratives that you heard discussed tonight, we'd be happy to share more. Please drop questions in the comment section on our Facebook Live. At this time, we're going to go to a short break. You'll see some beautiful performances by Ruby Fala'al, who is the founder of Tifai Moana Dance Production and is also QTPI.
Tonight is all about QTPI.
Okay. So we're going to take that short break, and then we'll be back for Q&A. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. And panel, we'll be right back.
Mari ino tahiti
Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
I hope you enjoyed those wonderful performances.
I know, what a treat.
By Ruby Fala'au and Tifa Mana Dance Production. Those clips were submitted as part of our virtual luau. And are all available on our YouTube channel. You can like and follow and subscribe to Utopia Seattle on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and yeah, Facebook.
Like and subscribe.
And follow. Welcome back, friends. It's great to see your beautiful faces. Yet again.
How was your break?
Very, very much needed.
Yeah, at this time, we also want to invite our audience members tuning in. If you had connected with any of the narratives that were shared throughout the stories that we discussed earlier tonight, or if you have any more questions to help you better understand the census, please feel free to drop them in. Let's have a chat, and we can pose it to our beautiful panel that's here tonight.
Yeah.
Additionally, I also want to give folks a heads up that we will be having a very special minutes to close out the evening. So don't go anywhere. But we will be getting back into this conversation about census. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
Tefna. Oh,
yeah.
so remember how you asked that question? How how homeless people get counted?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, on the census website, there's a portion there that explains that there's a certain time and date that census surveyors or enumerators, as you call them, um, apparently they dedicate a window to go visit campsites and other spaces that have a homeless community. So they go to food kitchens, food trucks, and all and encampments to do their survey. So I found that very interesting, a very interesting tidbit, um, and which also goes along the theme of why it's very important to keep counted, with home or without home, queer or not queer, trans or cis. So.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if I could just reiterate too,
Go ahead, sweetie.
that's important, especially another thing that's important to mention, especially for our QTPI community. Most of us know each other, right? Because we are a tight circle. If you're coming across someone, a member, an LGBT youth member, or even a fellow Pacific Islander who is experiencing homelessness, I would probably advise that you allow them to share your home address as their mailing address, as an that they can receive the questionnaire. They can be able to respond. They have the access or they have the tools to access these resources so that they don't go without. Um, and to touch up on Adriana's point, because a lot of us as a minority group have that distrust with the census or how the information is going to be used. The Census Bureau has a very tight knit process to secure the information they gather or collect from individuals who respond to the census. And, not that it's happened before, but as a penalty, you can be anyone who misuses information punishable by law for up to 5 years and will be fined, I believe, $250,000. As an extra way of telling folks don't mess with this stuff because the census does take the information collected serious and they keep it under lock and key.
So there are serious
And
implications.
you brought that up with that. Oh. Go ahead, yes. Oh, that's kind of amazing that these conversations are dropping because I think it would benefit with our community, with our PI community, when they hear this reassurance from us that that these information will not be used against you. So I'm kind of glad that we did this, so we can get the message out there. Is that what information that it's being submitted into census, it's solely for its reasons, and it's not going to be passed on to any other parties or used it as a weapon or a weapon in some form against you and your family.
Yeah.
And I also want to give a big kudos out to the surveyors that are out in the camps, the homeless camps, with getting out, especially during COVID. I think that's phenomenal work that they're doing, just to ensure that everybody's getting counted. And for them to just being out there, being in the front lines, doing this line of work is amazing. If you are a surveyor for Census or are watching this, I thank you. You're amazing.
Yeah. I think it's also important to say while we're on the topic of like being able to count those who are in unstable housing, as queer and trans Pacific Islanders, we tend to open our doors and our homes to each other. They may be couch surfing because that's what we queer and trans people do. We create our own spaces to serve our own communities. And I just want to encourage everyone that if there is someone couch surfing and they happen to sleep in your home on the day that you decide to get counted for census, please make sure that you count them into the census as well. Again, just reminding everyone about the language that it's everyone living within the United States. It doesn't specify that only a specific group of people is able to be counted. So even if you are a what do you call those students who study abroad? Like
Foreign exchange.
A foreign exchange student. Thank you for that.
Got you, girl.
Right. So even like a foreign exchange student, and they happen to study here during the time of the census, it's important to count them too.
Yeah, and I thank you for mentioning that as well, because
and I would be remiss.
Sorry, Tweety, real quickly.
No, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that people. Go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, one sec. That for some folks, right, who may be in unstable housing conditions, and might be currently couch surfing in your home, right, and you might have already completed your census, you know, we need to also ask and make sure that those that we're also helping to support and give resources to, that we're asking those questions. And, you know, we can make our phones readily available for them to make that quick phone call or visit that website. You know, most of us are in community work. We're surrounded by directly with community and provide these direct services across a multitude of organizations and like partners that we come into contact with. So now until September 30, it's even more crucial that we're asking these questions and keeping it at the forefront of our mind, and allowing for 10 minutes to help someone fill out their census form. Sorry, Tweety, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, but I would just be remiss if I didn't mention people who are also people with disabilities. Also, I encourage those of you who are caretakers within your own homes, or if you are not a caretaker but know of someone who has a disability, a physical disability, but isn't able to respond to the census, I encourage you to reach out to them and assist them with filling out their census questionnaire. Or if not, and they live with you, count them in your household too. There are important services, medical services that cater to people who have disabilities, who are experiencing disabilities, and they have certain needs that the census data could help to influence a whole lot of funding that could to.
Thank you so much, Tweety. We do have a question coming up from an anonymous source that asks our panel, what are some local programs in Washington that would be affected by folks not being counted in Census 2020?
Share a little bit. The census data works. Oh, Diana, go ahead.
I think I think you're the expert in this this area. But if to think about if to think about the question that the viewer has asked, I would think that census gives a government a clear picture of who we are and what we need as individuals, as a community, and if people do not get counted, I think it will be critical, in the planning, and we could be missing some new highways, roads, and maybe hospitals, or maybe schools for communities. So infrastructure and health. So it will trickle down, and I think it will affect everybody in the community, because if we don't get counted correctly, and um, they don't trickle down the money into the uh, state, into the cities, into the suburbs and the communities. So it will critically affect, I think. But Tweety, maybe you could add more.
I'd be happy to. Thank you for acknowledging me as an expert, which I will honestly say that I'm not an expert on census stuff. I just happen to be fortunate enough to be involved in this work. But yeah, to add on to the question at hand, I mean, there are so many programs in Washington State affected by the census. This includes infrastructure for our highways, our roads, bus routes that our children can take from school, support services like daycare centers, their school lunch programs, Pell Grants that that children in school to find around tuition or scholarship programs that could help them get into college. Another thing that we've mentioned before was the EBT and SNAP benefit. By account in Washington State, this telling me that this is how much more money, because over the next 10 years, will and the growing population within that time span will be needing all of. And Diana, back to you, because as you being the COVID respondent, this having an accurate count now, this happen again somewhere within the next 10 years, influence funding for services to have food security. Utopia has worked recently to provide folks within our city, particularly the Kent or the South Seattle region of King County, to have our food distribution, which has helped so much families. And through that activity, through that program, we were able to continue our census outreach time efforts, because you don't get, and if we're not able to continue this work, and people won't be able to get federal funding that allow them to get testing kits for COVID-19 as an option to where it's pretty much free.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, folks, for mentioning that as well. Medicaid, Medicare, in a time like this, that we're now experiencing a global pandemic, the data that was used to help determine funding for all of the resources that you're seeing coming out right now, whether they're governmental or non-governmental, through organizations such as Utopia, is determined from data that was collected 10 years ago, right? And so all of that information is now going to be refreshed and updated this year, and we have a responsibility, everyone, to ensure that we get counted.
Also, I think that was such a wonderful question as well, because it's always great to truly understand something by putting it into perspective with real examples that hit home for us and that directly impact us. And so to be able to see what programs here locally will be impacted, right, when we're not counting folks correctly in census, I think that sometimes that's the inspiration that some folks might need in order to get up and fill out their census. So thank you for painting that picture. Very important.
I also really want to touch on an important question that's coming through because, folks, sorry, excuse me, folks might be hesitant to ask this question, but I'm glad that somebody did. And they were curious to find out why the census is not limited to just citizens. Would folks like to help elaborate on this? Basically, why does the census also include folks who are non-U.S. citizens?
Can you all hear us?
Sorry. As I was saying, according to Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, there's a mention in there about enumerations of all people that's occupying the land. And so what this basically means is that regardless of citizenship status, the purpose of the census is to count everyone, regardless of your citizenship status, because by doing so, they're able to enumerate the seats as what Tipa mentions on House of Representatives based on the count. So that's my understanding of why it doesn't matter.
But also,
you want to go?
Yeah.
Or can I go?
I can go. Also, this country is not just made up of citizens.
Right, it's a melting pot.
It's made up of so much more than people with a citizenship marker. There are U.S. nationals.
Mm-hmm.
There are folks who are here on a green card. And there are undocumented folks that have contributed greatly to the growth of this economy and this country. And so it would be a huge failure of the government to serve everyone within its borders if we are only to count citizens, because that's not considering everyone that's contributed to the growth of the economy and the growth of the country, but also the people out there that we need to serve, programs that need to exist regardless of where they live and regardless of citizenship status.
Okay, I'm done. But it's a very important narrative to discuss. And, I really appreciate the individual for raising that. So
don't be afraid to get counted.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter where you're from.
And don't let anybody tell you you shouldn't be counted.
You can even.
So,
and trust me, you can even be born in Mars and then be counted on the census.
As long as you're living here during census.
So the time now, folks, is 7:48. We're coming close to the ending of our program tonight. Oh, sorry, Tweety, did you have any final thoughts on that?
No, she said you could be born in Mars.
Oh.
As long as you're in the household in America on April 1st.
Thank you. So real quickly, we just want to go around and allow you folks to share some updates on your program areas for our viewers before we close out and sign off for the evening. Tweety, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Okay, so I would encourage everyone to join our collected initiatives with the NHPI community, especially through EPIC, who is hosting this entire event all week long. Natso was able to share some of those events with you early on. But another initiative, too, that we're working on is to getting folks out there here in Washington State to register, or wherever you may be in the country. I encourage you to register to vote. Your voice matters also in that way through this next election coming up. And then last, I would just, sorry. Yeah, I would just encourage you to join us as we continue. Well, AAP, there's going to be a democracy summit on the 15th, which is next week, Wednesday. This will give folks a chance to here in Washington State to tune into representatives in the running or in this election to share their views on what it means to tailor us as a Asian American Pacific Islander community. You'll get to know some of those candidates at this next summit, airing 6 to 8 p.m. next Wednesday on the 15th. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tweety. Let's go next to Diana. 1 minute, go.
Yes. So we'll be doing, we are continuing with our emergency grocery vouchers, and we'll be launching that very soon. We will be giving $400 worth of grocery vouchers to shop at Safeway and for our Pacific Islander BIPOC community members. Also, coming soon is Curry Talks, and I will see you there.
Thank you, Diana. Adriana, 1 minute, let's go.
Hi, everyone. So I just want to talk about our 2 social support groups that we have. It's our Real Talk that's being held every Tuesday of the month, and our Transaction that's being held every 3rd Tuesday of the month. I also wanted to present out that our collaboration funding with Ingersoll. If you are a trans or gender diverse BIPOC folks who live in Thurston, Pierce, or Snohomish County, if you are still facing financial setbacks due to COVID, be sure to reach out to me to fill out a form to access these fundings. I also have my new Possibilities Gender Affirming Closet that's up and running. If you are trans or gender diverse and looking for access to getting a new outfit, whether it be for an interview or for a special occasion, or especially a first day in the job. All my information is presented on our website and all over our social media. Be sure to give a message out or reach out if you're in need of this resource. I'm trying my best I can to go as fast as I could. I also have our clinics that's being held on every 3rd and 4th, our STI HIV clinic that's on the 3rd Wednesday of every month, and our HIV prep that's on the 4th Wednesday of every month. All this information you can find it all over our social media if you are looking to get access to this. But yeah.
Okay, Nia, close us out for the lightning round. Go.
I am currently in the process of recruiting and building our Talk to a Trans leadership cohort, which involves our queer and trans-Pacific Islander community members. So if you're interested in joining and learning more about building policies and focusing on issues that matters and issues that we feel that needs to be put out there, please feel free to reach out to me. You can always mail us, message us on our Utopia social platforms on Twitter, Instagram, as well as Facebook. I would really love everyone's participation and look forward to that. You'll be, as long as you follow our page, we will be updating our programs as we go. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all, wonderful staff, for being a part of tonight's panel. Also, thank you to our partners at EPIC, Empowered Pacific Islander Communities. A special reminder that tomorrow is Indigenous Count Day, followed by September 11 will be Service Day, and Saturday will be Youthful Census Day. You can find all of that information on our social media. Also, Utopia is a grantee of Social Justice Fund Northwest, and next week, on the 16th, you can spend more time with me on the Frontline Space Building panel. Ooh. Yes. So please tune in there to learn more about the amazing work that is happening here at Utopia. And I also want to remind folks, a lot of information was shared throughout tonight's broadcast. It will be available for you to replay when the live is done. And anything else, Tippa?
No, if you want to follow me, go to
inquiries.
No, thank you all so much. I want to give a great big thanks to the panel tonight. You were all wonderful. Great way to end census with this last month and very few last weeks to get counted. I applaud you all for the hard work that you've been doing all year, especially you, Tweety. You mentioned earlier you're not a census expert, but you know what? You've been impacting so many people to get counted this year. That, in my opinion, is a census expert.
You're our expert, girl.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, and a huge shout out to our comms manager in the background, as well as our ED in the back.
Hey, it makes me look bad. I was just getting there. I also want to give a big shout out to our team who is working to operate at the back end of our social lives tonight. Our executive director, Taffy Johnson, and Jaren, this is Jaren's very first social live
production.
And like running with the program.
And around the program smooth. So thank you so much, Jaren.
But last but not least, I want to thank our audience and everybody who's been tuning in to watch our event tonight. Thank you all for always supporting the work of Utopia. You are the heart of this work, and you mean everything to all that we do.
Absolutely. Now, before we sign off, introduce our special guest, Tepa.
All right.
And it's been such a lovely time hosting this event with my sister Tepa.
Yeah.
It was super fun.
Yeah. So to close off our show tonight is none other than Kumu Hula Kahu Kapena Malulani. Kumu Hula Kahu Kapena Malulani is from Halau Hula o Malulani Basin, El Cajon, San Diego. Sorry, I can't pronounce El Cajon, El Cajon, whatever that is, and has been a member of Kulia Kunavai Kumu Hula Association of Southern California for 5 years, and has moved to San Diego since 2002 from Lahaina, Maui. So without further ado, to close off
our evening, please welcome our special guest.
Aloha. I must tell you that I'm very impressed with the works that you folks are all doing. And you all are so poised. Oh my goodness. And I also must add, seeing you are so beautiful. You all have such beautiful faces and such beautiful spirit. So go ahead, go do what you folks are doing. Be the light, yeah? My Nakuliana Maliu na ika halame kale le huno ya nakano o kauno ya no ine line hoyo kai hiki puno me ke aloha 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 ana apule Nau makua mai kalahiki a kalakoe ka ho'okui a ka halawai. Nau makua ia kahina kua ia kahina alo ia ka'akau I kalani. O ke hai kalani, o e kalani, nulu I kalani, ka holo I kalani. E ia ka pula pula o ko. E malama ko ia mako e kalani. Ulu I ka honua, e ulo I ka pa'aina o Hawaii. E homai I ka ike, e homai I ke ikaika, e homai I ke akamai, e homai I ka maopo popono, e homai I ka ike pāpālua, e homai I ka mana, a mama ua noa. I'd like to close with a pule for everyone. Almighty God, by whose power we are created and by whose love we are redeemed, guide and strengthen us by your Spirit through these uncertain times. Thank you for the ideas that you spoke life into here today, and for the courage of each voice that stood to be heard. In each one of us lies a puzzle piece, one by one. As we stand and speak and work, we see our individual pieces moving into place. We continue to strive for your will, piece by piece. Together, we can complement each other's strengths and cancel out our weaknesses. As a team, a unified body focused on good work, we can do great things in your honor as we purposed to do so. Father, we humbly ask for guidance to ensure our communities are seen, heard, and respected. Along the way, ensuring resources are plentiful for our communities to thrive and continue to do good work for all peoples through great organizations in HPI, Utopia, Seattle, Pacific Islanders, LGBTQ communities everywhere. Father, I also humbly ask, through your love, may we all receive healing, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Bless us, Lord, as we leave here today to take your passion with us, fan its flame after we part, and inspire our best contributions. Remind us always of your love as we see our plans unfold and accomplish the goals we set here today. Amen. God bless you all.